Talk a little bit today about just some fun topics that I actually really enjoy, especially if you're kind of new to amateur league play. Um, we're going to talk about, and I got the notepad out so I can remember what I talked about, at least the best that I can, is basically if you are new to league play. Um, and here's the storm specifically. So new to HOTS league play. So that means like, Heroes of the Storm tournaments or NGS, Heroes Lounge, things like that. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. Hopefully it's not too long, but if you're brand new, there might be a few things that you might not know that you're missing. And I don't know if it gets talked about too much. You kind of figure it out. So this is like if you're brand new, or maybe if your team is like the first season and they're struggling, these are some things to kind of keep in mind of what you need to, how do you kind of construct and build your team as the season goes out. So, the first thing that you guys want to determine is what in the world your goals are for for the team, because there's a lot of different dynamics, right? Like if you're a team that you built, or like, and you've never played, like none of you guys have ever played, so you don't really know what to expect. So if you're a team or a player that has specific goals and you join a team, right? You might have different goals, right? So, and depending on your goals, it could really kind of determine everything that happens after or how you approach league play. So, I mean, in my opinion, playing the game right now, if you've never played league play, Storm League's probably the highest you've experienced so far in ranked play, things like that. Um, but I can tell you from experience that there is a better level, and it's a lot more fun than Storm League. It's actually more designed of how the game should have been played, or should be playing, or should be played, or being played, or being experienced. Let's put it that way. Um, so basically, if your goals are to, I don't know, win the championship, right? As an example, these are just example goals. Or maybe your goals are to make it to playoffs. Um, as an example, maybe your goals are just to finish a season and then reassess. And maybe it's something as simple as like maybe your goals are to just have fun, right? Or maybe for a lot of you guys, that might be it. So, the two predominant leagues, at least right now, as of the 10th of March on 2021. These are the two main leagues. I've done some other videos about it too, where they kind of go side by side and the playoffs overlap with each other. So you can technically do both. But depending on your goals as either an individual player or a team, if you're brand new, this kind of determines like everything else that follows after, right? So the next thing to kind of consider is the dynamic of the group, right? So ideally, you want everyone in the group to be on the same page. Okay, so maybe at first it's not known, especially maybe you guys meet three others and you're like free agents and no one's ever experienced anything, but you just want to play. So trying to determine the goals, which also kind of carries on to the dynamic of the group, um, it could really fluctuate on the experience, right? Like, so for example, let's say you're a casual player and you only can play 2 or 3 nights a week because you got family obligations already, right? I probably would fit in that category because I got a lot going on. Um, Now, if you join a team, let's say that has a little bit more hardcore approach, like they want to win the championship, so they're going to put in 5, 6 nights a week, like 3 hours, whatever, right? And you're only like a 2 to 3 nighter. So I mean, that kind of dynamic. Let's see, hardcore team, can't spell, there's no spell check here. So basically that's not going to work well. And the problem is a lot of times when groups first get made, not everyone is on the same page. Like the idea of what one person has wants out of the experience may not be the same as the other. Now that's important to address like right away, because then you can save everyone time if you guys aren't on the same page as far as like what you guys are after. And if you don't have an open conversation about it, even if it's just a group of friends trying to have fun, if the goal of the group is just to have fun, then make it fun, right? But if the goal is to win championships, and you're brand new, I mean, a huge lofty goal if you've never experienced league play, but definitely shoot for the stars if that's what your goals are. But also be realistic with where you're at as a player, and also where your team's at, right? Because I mean, you're only going to be as strong as the weakest link on the team, and you got to at least have 5 on the field when you play this game, right? So another thing to consider is like what does the individual members of each group do best? Okay, so now the reason I say that is because there's a lot of tasks that go on behind the scenes, a lot of things to make a game happen. So, for example, like once you get past the dynamic of the group and your guys are on the same page as far as goals, and everyone's on the same page, even before you play your first game together, it's really good, and you can do it, you don't have to do it at the beginning, but it's good to at least identify who's best at what. So, for example, most of the time when someone's a captain on the team, depending how it is, right? When you think about captain in the sports field, you're thinking like, hey, they're probably the best player on the team, or maybe a combination of the most experience, or they call the shots. And none of those are wrong. But in league play, a captain, for the most part, they, let's see. Sorry, I'm typing in here. Basically, the captain does a lot of the administrative duties, meaning, let's see, and what do they do? Right, so so they'll do like a lot of administrative duties. They'll, at the very least, they'll set up games with the other team, as an example. Now, obviously, a lot of their role could change and have a lot of hats that they wear, but that's, someone's got to set up the games, right, or nothing happen. Even if you don't even practice at all during the week, someone's got to communicate with the other team to make it happen, or set up a time and coordinate. Coordinate schedules with not only your group of 5, but with the other group of 5. And obviously the captain of the other team can do that too, right? So that's the very minimum of what the captain duties, or what the hat wears. Now, I believe in both divisions, they can kind of, if they want to have the captain role, they can actually set other people as assistant captain. Or I didn't mean divisions, I meant like leagues is what I meant to say. But so you can actually have your assistant captains like do those kinds of duties, and it's just like administrative work. It's just a communication, setting up stuff, things like that, keeping people. So usually they're a good communicator. Let's put that. This will help. Just kind of evolving this video as it goes. Now, some other things are, setting up. Let's see, how do I want to phrase? Oh, basically, there's teams scouting. Sorry, like I'm not thinking right now. So, if you choose, all right. So, a lot of times when you're trying to play an opponent, like the league systems, they give a great way for people to scout other teams. A lot of statistics. There's a lot of websites, whether it's like, Heroes Profile, which I've mentioned in the past. You got HOTS logs, but then you got their internal things like Heroes Lounge has their own cool little database, and then NGS has its own too, which actually goes through Heroes Profile. I think I've spelled that wrong up there. Okay, great. Now, so someone ideally should be a scouter. This is an optional step, but it's going to help a ton. If you do no scouting on the opposing team, you're going to lose a lot. Just saying. So someone should be a designated scouter. Now the scouting, when you think about how to do it, though, that's just the statistical part, right? So maybe I need to do another. My goodness, it keeps getting bigger and bigger here. Let's see, let's do this. So this is just stats of how you get there. Let's see, other ways you can scout are, let's see, you can watch live games, because sometimes they'll cast them. Like NGS does a lot of that, Heroes Lounge does it too. But you can actually scout two teams at the same time. So whether you're looking for mistakes or common tendencies that the other opponent does, you can watch film, make it sound all professional, but I'll just say, I call it film, but replays actually. So you can do that to scout the other team. Other things is like when you get in game, you can actually right click, I believe, on their name and view their profile, even if you're not friends. So that's kind of like a, oh crap, I didn't do anything, and let's see what they've been playing, or at least one player has been playing, right? And maybe a lot of teams will do that. I don't recommend it, but you know, it just depends on what you're after for your goals, right? That's just kind of like a, oh crap, let's see what they've been doing kind of thing, even if they haven't done anything. Let's see. And then other responsibilities, let's see, you need a shot caller. This is someone in the game. If obviously if you've been playing the game, you know what this is, but if you've never done it, it's basically someone who's calling the game or what you should be doing as a team for the game. Now you, ideally, I mean, technically you don't need one, but if you want to progress in the seasons, you should at least have one. And most of the teams only do have one. It does get a little bit more complicated when there's multiple shot callers, but sometimes teams will do that. I know I'm on a team that kind of has some shot calling, but it kind of depends. We've evolved and it's kind of like a group, but we'll have people during the game that feed them information and people that make decisions. So it's easier for you to wrap your head around it. It's like, I guess it's the decision maker, you know, and you should theoretically only have one of those. They make the final calls. Okay, so however you want to think about that. Now, as far as other things, like let's say, let's see, let's talk about hero pool. Okay, so this is an interesting puzzle because you know you got five guys or 5 players, girls could be girls too, obviously, all on the same team, and you know some of you guys, like 3 of you guys have Sylvanas that you can play really well. You know, one has Murden, another one has Lili as an example, and then maybe there's a mix and match. There's some crossover or whatever. There's a handful of ways to determine roles. I guess I'll put it under here. I don't know. That's the way you can do it, or you can do it by like who knows the heroes the best, right? There's advantages and disadvantages to doing it either way, but and maybe we'll talk about that in another video because that could be a pretty big topic. But let's just go back to hero pool. So you kind of have to determine like what your plan is going to be as far as your team, like how you guys are going. Are you going to be more of an offensive team or of a defensive team? Maybe a mix of balance. And obviously the heroes that you play, and if you've played Storm League, you know, like you already know that, or even just played the game in general, you'll know that there's just certain heroes that kind of excel at certain things. Now, things you got to keep in mind here is, you know, is there, I don't even know how to spell it, the synergies, or there, whatever the opposite of synergies is, like counter synergies? I don't know if that's what I want to use here, but basically the opposite. Like basically you're screwing yourselves, but screwing yourselves, question mark. So that's what you're trying to figure out, and ideally in draft, which is a whole nother aspect of the game, a big part of it. A lot of people argue that you can win games just off draft alone. I always feel that there's always a chance, even if you do the crappiest draft ever, but I'm always hopeful, I guess. But that a lot of that can be determined ideally before you play the game. Hopefully, you know, hopefully you guys are skilled enough to be like, okay, well, if I do this, this is going to make it really hard for the other player to do their ability. So, for example, let's say I'm a Jaina player, which I do play Jaina, and let's say the tank is a Diablo player, right? So Diablo player is, or the Diablo, the way the character is designed is more like a pick focus, right? Like single out a target, blow them up, right? Which, in theory, the Jaina could work, right? But if you think about the way the mechanics of Diablo work, Um, you know, is he going to charge into the wall and hold them there? Is he going to charge in and then automatically flip them over? Because depending on what they do, then you got to determine where it's best to land all your crap as Jaina, as an example. And that's just one of the many, many examples. I'm not like an expert on all that stuff, but just to kind of give you a picture of like, you know, how things could work out really well for characters when they're together and how things could go really bad. And I've had it both ways as those examples, like tank players, Diablo, and then I play really well with them. And then some I just can't predict what they're doing, and I do really bad, right? And then I get yelled at for not following up right. Right, but then you know, if you think about characters like Joanna, obviously more predictable what's going to happen with her, because you have the big W that expands and then obviously sucks everyone in, things like that. Let's see, what else here do I want to talk about? You know, how many nights you practice, it just kind of depends. It kind of goes back to goals. Really, first off, it's just like availability, right? Like, are there actual nights that people are free? And that might actually answer your other questions. Now, if your goal is to win a championship, as an example, but you only can play 2 nights a week, there is a world where that works, but it's going to take time, right? It's like anything, if you practice anything new, or just practice anything a lot, it's not just you're trying to work with, it's 4 other people trying to get on the same page, right? So the thing is let's say you practice 2 to 3 hours every time you get together, and you're only practicing 2 nights a week, right? So if we just do the math, it's like anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, ideally, unless you guys are always on the same time frame, that you guys get to work together. And within those 4 to 6 hours, holy cow, there's literally so much you can do. Right? So the thing is that even if we just do the math, let's say you practice 5 nights a week versus the 2, both of those scenarios can be successful, but you're going to get there faster if you play more together, right? And then, you know, trying to identify how you get the practice time, there isn't really going to be a substitute for playing with the same group of people versus by yourself. Like, you can work on individual stuff, depending on what role you're doing or whatever character you're trying to get better at, outside of it, which you should also do for like regular practice. But there isn't really a substitute for repetition with the same people, because then you guys start getting the same mindset, you start practicing the same things. So a huge advantage. Now, as far as like the game types, like I've seen teams do all these different things. Like, so for example, if we just think about quick match, and we think about unranked, and we think about Storm League, and we think about ARAM, and we think about scrims, right? In theory, again, there's any situation where it could work, because any of those combinations could work. So for example, let's say you want to get a specific 5-man, you don't have a lot of time, like 5 characters is what I mean. Like, you want Murky and Phoenix and Diablo and Stukov and whatever, right? You want specifically these 5. So the advantage to throwing it in a quick match is I won't even put that, but because you'll get the example. But basically, the advantage is you get to play the characters. The disadvantage is you might get on a map that's not in league play, but you get to play with the characters. So there's, you just have to determine like what you guys have. If you only have like 2 or 3 games, then maybe that's what you got to do. Now, obviously, the competition gets a little bit better when it's unranked, and I mean, there's still maps that are not in the rotation there, but at least I think there are. Maybe they changed it recently, or since I last did it, which might have been months ago. But basically, with unranked, you at least get the ranking system, right? You get the bans practice, because that's obviously how league play is going to go. They're going to do the banning system. So there's an advantage to that. And then there's also like no mental pressure of losing rank, right? And then anytime that you're with a team, you'll probably hear a lot of people say this, and I'll probably just be one of many. But when you play with a new group of people that you've never played in a competitive environment, you're going to lose a lot. Like, it's just going to happen. because I mean, unless you guys like play a lot on your own and you guys are on the same skill level and the skill floor and the same knowledge, it's going to be hard to kind of cohesively throw it all together. And sometimes playing it in a Storm League environment where people are really, aware of their rank, that's going to like add an extra tension where you may not want it. So unranked is where a lot of people like to practice for that reason. And obviously you can do it in Storm League. This is probably going to be the highest competition that the game offers right now as far as practicing. And a lot of teams will do this too. I mean, I've seen a lot of teams do a lot of different things. Let's see. So the advantage, obviously, in Storm League environment is you get more of the map pool to some extent. Can't practice exactly the map you want, but you get more of the maps. There's just a lot more pressure, which can be good. I don't even know if I'm saying pressure right. Is it spelled that way? I don't know. Maybe that way. It doesn't look right. But added pressure meaning like it's kind of more on the line. So you guys hopefully will be more focused or more stressed out, depending on who you are. But at the end of the day, you got to talk about it as a group. If there's someone that stresses out about it, even though it's the highest, like again, everyone has to be on the same page. It kind of ties back to goals and what everyone wants out of the experience. And then I've actually seen some teams just do it in ARAM. Now this doesn't help with any macro, meaning like the map part of it. There's like no map knowledge. It's just like, obviously if you're watching this video, maybe a lot of you guys do ARAM or whatever, but there's no macro. But there have been arguments that you get a lot of micro practice. Maybe on characters you've never played. So maybe that's a disadvantage, right? It's like, you can't really pick on the character that you want to work on all the time, but at least you get a little bit of micro experience, which you can transfer to other characters too. Let's see, anything else that I wanted to talk about? I guess the other thing that I can bring up is probably the last item here, is what can you do on nights that you get together? Now, for the most part, I'm missing something there. I don't know, maybe that's spelled right. For the most part, though, you're just going to play the game, right? The problem with just playing the game, though, is that sometimes you don't always know if you're doing something wrong, and you keep practicing the same mistakes. So, again, it's practice, and maybe it's repetition, but there's other things that you can work on. You can work on draft theory for certain maps, or draft theory in general for your group, and sometimes even if it's not the most fun thing to do, it can help a ton, right? Because then you can kind of identify, especially at that level, because a lot of those little things matter. Like if teams are exactly the same skill level wise, drafting can put them over the edge. You could do scouting, which you can refer up there. Lots of different ways to scout, but you could do that as a team, because maybe the tank player is only looking at the tank and how they do stuff, whereas the support player or the healer or whatever will be, looking at what the opposing healers are doing and how they're positioning, right? Let's go back up here too. I didn't even put it in here, but I didn't even mention it. So now those are the four things that the game offers in itself, but also the biggest thing that a lot of teams will do, especially a lot of the higher end teams, is they'll scrim, because they can control the maps they play to some extent, which is huge for map practice if you're trying to do a specific strategy, or like if you're weak on a map and you want to get better, as an example, you more likely get the hero pick, or hero picks. You can kind of prearrange it. I mean, if you can think about any arrangement, like you can really do anything you want. Like if one team is saying, hey, we want to practice Garrosh, then the other team can just let it through if they're fine with it, right? It doesn't happen as much. Usually they just kind of simulate it like an actual game, but you can do whatever really in the scrim, as long as the other team's in agreement. Sky's the limit. So, you know, you can work on hero picks, you can work on match, you can work on hero combinations, I mean, wombo combos, I mean, whatever. Like a popular one that's known in League play is like, it's kind of an old one. I don't know if anyone really does anymore. When they do like a Zero Tool Void Prism, which sets up into like an APOC, which sets up into something else, something nasty, right? Or like a Jaina Ring, right? That's like probably the most famous wombo combo, or maybe I don't know. Not everyone can pull it off, and we can't even pull it off all the time. But just as an example, right? Like scrims are probably a better way to, number one, simulate the highest level because it's literally another team, probably just like you. Nothing on the line other than just learning and trying to figure it out. Probably the best environment. I would recommend it if you guys can pull it off. And that would just require like you reaching out to teams and seeing if they're open, you know, the same availability, things like that. A lot of the skill sets you need just to set up a game in general. Let's see, I think that's all I had for my notes. So if you guys see this on YouTube a little bit later, feel free to put in the comments. You know, there's other things that are probably valuable for new players starting up. I'm sure I missed some things. And if you guys want to set up a scrim, let me know. Perfectly good with that. But yeah, if you like this content, go ahead and subscribe, hit like, because I got no followers, and it'd be fantastic to have some. Maybe some people are enjoying this content. But anything, it's always been fun. And I'll see you guys in game. Take care.